All right, so this is ISI 2025 PEB. Question number 1. Consider a monopoly firm fixing a market demand function. So P is equal to 12 minus Q. Monopolist has a single plant that can produce cost at this and CQ is equal to 0 otherwise. मतलब कि produce नहीं करेगा तो fixed cost भी incur नहीं होने वाला है. That is what it means. So सबसे पहला part में find the optimal monopoly output. What is the deadweight loss? What is the deadweight loss in comparison to what? In comparison to perfect competition, what is the deadweight loss? Social welfare find out at the monopoly output. Okay. Suppose the monopoly can price discriminate perfectly. So perfect price discrimination will happen and can also sell in the world market at a constant price of 8. So world market में constant price of 8 पे it can sell. Solve for the optimal monopoly outcome. Okay. So पहला दो parts को करिए and then tell me what will be your answer. Do it. A and B. चलो solve करते हैं इसको. Let's get into it. So this is one part A. It's basically the standard monopoly case. Okay. So basically, market demand curve is 12 minus Q. Cost is 2 plus Q square by 2. Optimal output, let's profit maximize 12 minus Q into Q minus 2 plus Q square by 2. Derivative 12 minus 2Q minus Q is equal to 0. Q of a monopolist is basically equal to 4. Price of a monopolist is equal to 8. Let's check the profitability. So 8 into 4 minus of 2 plus 4 square 16 by 2. 32 minus 10, 22, positive. Therefore, monopolist will produce. Okay, so this is about the monopolist. Now, in order to find out the deadweight loss, first I need to find out the perfect competition. So this is about monopoly. Now PC, perfect competition. Perfect competition, क्या? Marginal cost is equal to price. So यहाँ पर marginal cost is what? Marginal cost is equal to Q. So Q is equal to P. So P, which is equal to Q, Q is equal to 12 minus Q. Or in other words, Q of perfect competition is equal to 6. Price of perfect competition is also equal to 6. Okay. Now you can easily see this by drawing the diagram. Marginal cost is equal to Q. So this is nothing but the marginal cost, which is equal to the supply. And 12 minus Q is the price. So this is P, this is Q, this is 12. This is my marginal cost, which is equal to the supply curve, right? For perfect competition, what is happening? 6, 6. For monopoly, what is happening? Let's use a different color. For monopoly, this is happening 8, 4. So what is the deadweight loss? The deadweight loss is basically this shaded area. What is this corresponding to? MC is equal to Q. So Q is 4. This is 4. Deadweight loss. Basically, the monopolist will have the social welfare as this, and the perfect competition would have had the two big triangles, right? So what is the deadweight loss? Deadweight loss is this. This is basically 8. This is 4. And this is 2. So it's basically a triangle. Deadweight loss is equal to half into height into base. This is the deadweight loss. Am I making sense? Is this clear? If it is clear, please type C in the chat box. Okay? Let's put a divider. Now let's calculate the social welfare under monopolist output. Okay. So social welfare is equal to the sum of consumer surplus plus the producer surplus, or equivalently the total value to consumers minus the total cost of production. Okay. Consumer surplus here is what? Monopolist के इसमें ये है. This is the consumer surplus. Consumer surplus is half into 4 into 4, which is equal to 8. Producer surplus is basically the revenue minus the variable cost. Okay. Revenue minus the variable cost. That is this area. So you can basically find out the producer surplus from here, or like this. Okay. You can find out the producer surplus. What is this? This is a rectangle. I call this rectangle as say A and this as B. So what is A? A is equal to, this is 4 multiplied by 4. And B is equal to half into 4 into 4. 16 is basically 8. So that's equal to 24. See, it's basically the profit was equal to 22. The producer surplus is equal to 24. Just see it here. Can all of you see this? Please type S that you can see this. So basically, producer surplus is nothing but profit plus the fixed cost. Am I making sense? The fixed cost of 2, add it. 22 plus 2, 24. That is the producer surplus, right? So the producer surplus basically takes that into account. So the social welfare is basically consumer surplus plus the producer surplus, which is equal to 8 plus 24, which is equal to 32. You can, this is up to you, since they have not said what exactly is the social surplus. So you can also define the social surplus or the social welfare as consumer surplus plus the profit of the consumer. In that case, you can say that the social welfare is 30 instead of 32. Both definitions, however, will yield the same deadweight loss of 4 when compared to the efficient outcome. Okay, both the situations will come up to the same deadweight loss. Deadweight loss remains unchanged no matter which definition of social welfare we consider. Okay, clear hai? This is the first part. First part is this okay? समझ में आया first part? Okay, can I move on? Second part में चलते हैं. Suppose the monopoly firm can price discriminate perfectly and can sell in the world market at a constant price of 8. Solve for the optimal monopoly outcome. Part B करेंगे अभी. So the firm can now perfectly price discriminate in the home market. That is charging each consumer equal to their willingness to pay. Okay. And sell in world market at price is equal to 8. Number one, we have to firstly understand what will happen in the home market. So perfect price discrimination in the home market where the demand is basically price is equal to 12 minus Q. Okay, the firm will allocate and world market में क्या है? Price is equal to 8. This is the world market, this is the home market. Okay, firm will allocate units to maximize revenue in the following way. For units where willingness to pay exceeds 8, firm sells in home market. Please understand, the monopolist will never sell at a price lower than 8. क्योंकि वर्ल्ड मार्केट में तो 8 it can sell unlimited quantities. At price 8 it can sell unlimited quantities in the world market, right? So why should it sell at a price lower than 8 in the home market, right? जब कोई ग्राहक आपके पास में तैयार है to pay 8 rupees, will you sell anyone else a price lower than 8 rupees? It doesn't make any sense, right? Therefore, for units where willingness to pay of the consumer is less than 8, firm sells in the world market at price equal to 8. Okay, so basically if I were to draw, this is the supply, this is the demand, this is Q, this is P. Okay, price in the world market is 8 in the home market, therefore it will be able to sell only 4 quantity. This is basically marginal cost is equal to Q is equal to P. Okay, and how much will it sell in the world market? At 8 price, amount that it is willing to sell is 8 quantity. So basically this 4 to 8 quantity is the amount that it is selling in the world market. Am I making sense? Okay. Now, what will be the consumer surplus? Since it is perfect price discrimination, consumer surplus is equal to 0. What about the producer surplus? Producer surplus is divided into 2 parts. One is the domestic market. In the domestic market, what will happen? Each and every firm is being charged a different each and every consumer is being charged a different price. So it's basically if I were to talk about it in this way, it's basically this entire thing is the domestic consumer surplus. Okay, so that's basically integration 0 to 4, 12 minus x dx. This kind of a integration has to happen because that is what it is. Okay, so the first 4 units are sold in the market. This is basically the revenue. This is the total revenue. I'm not taking in the cost yet. Total revenue is this. So that's basically 12x minus x square by 2, 0 to 4. That's 48 minus 4 square by 2, 8. So 40. 40 is the total revenue from the domestic market. Okay. World market, TRD. Total revenue from the world market. I'm selling 4 units in the world market at a price of how much? 8. 32. This is the total revenue from the world market. Okay. Total cost for 8 units is 2 plus 8 square by 2. 8 square 64 by 2, 32. This is 34. Total cost is 34. Profit of the firm is 40 plus 32, 72 minus 34. 72 minus 34 is 38. This is the profit. You can see the monopolist profit in part A was how much? 22. So one part A, monopolist profit was 22. With perfect price discrimination and opening up of the world market, now the profit is 38. Am I making sense? Is this okay with everyone? If it is okay, please type okay in the chat box. And I hope that you have also done it in the same way. Have you copied? Can I move on? As soon as I move on, this is going to vanish. Okay, so let's go on. Okay, just a minute. Sure, done. Let's go on to the third part. Look at part C now. Next, suppose the monopoly firm has access to 2 plants, plant 1 and 2. Now, the cost of production at each plant is Qi square by 2. So, in the first plant, it's Q1 square by 2. Second plant is Q2 square by 2. Solve the firm's aggregate cost function. That is the total cost in case it decides to produce a total output of Q using either one or both of the plants. Use the aggregate cost function to solve for the optimal monopoly output. What is the optimal monopoly outcome if the monopoly firm can price discriminate perfectly? So, पहला part में the total cost function as a function of Q हमें निकालना है. Then we have to find out the optimal monopoly output, and then it can perfectly price discriminate now. So now, please tell me what will be the optimal monopoly outcome. So Q when perfect price discrimination can happen. Okay, this is what the question is. Please make an attempt. चलो solve करते हैं साथ में. Yeah. So let's go into the blank space. So this is one part C, part 1. One part C, part 1 is first we have to find out aggregate cost function. Please understand it can be done in multiple ways. I know that C1 is equal to Q1 square by 2. C2 is equal to Q2 square by 2. Now, when we have the monopolist profit, you will ultimately have the profit maximizing condition will be MR is equal to MC1 is equal to MC2. Now, what is MC1? MC1 is Q1, which is equal to MC2, which is equal to Q2. So ultimately, you will get Q1 is equal to Q2. Okay. Total cost is nothing but minimize for Q1, Q2, Q1 square by 2 plus Q2 square by 2, subject to Q1 plus Q2 is equal to Q. Now, because MC1 is equal to MC2, Q1 is equal to Q2, you will ultimately get Q1 is equal to Q2 is equal to Q by 2. Okay. Therefore, cost is nothing but Q1 is what? Q by 2 whole square by 2. Q2 is the same thing, Q by 2 whole square by 2. So this is Q square by 4 into 2, 8, Q square by 8, which is basically Q square by 4. The total cost function is basically Q square by 4, right? That's the first part that we had to do. Swapnil, perfect. I hope everyone has been able to understand this as well. You can look at it from the profit function itself. Okay. Now, to find out the optimal monopoly output, this is the aggregate cost function. Optimal monopoly output, that's part 2. You can basically profit maximize just with this. So profit equation is basically 12 minus Q into Q minus the cost function is now Q square by 4. So pi dash 12 minus 2Q minus Q by 2 is equal to 0. So 5Q by 2 is equal to 12. So 12 is equal to 5 by 2Q, or Q is equal to 24 by 5, which is equal to 4.8. Price is equal to 7.2. Plant allocation Q1 is equal to Q2 is equal to 2.4. Am I making sense? And what is the profit? Profit you can find out. Profit is basically equal to 7.2 into 4.8 minus 4.8 whole square by 4. You have to basically calculate this. You'll be given a calculator. You can calculate it as 28.8. This is what you'll get. Clear hai? Kitna aa raha tha? 22 aa raha tha in the first case. Even if I exclude the fixed cost, to be 24 aa raha tha. Because I am being able to produce it now in 2 different plants. My profit has also increased. Can all of you appreciate this? Can all of you see this? If you can, please type C in the chat box. It's a very interesting question. Now, this is not actually part 2. Part 2 is perfect price discrimination. Now, perfect price discrimination with 2 plants. So perfect price discrimination with 2 plants, marginal cost, take it out. Marginal cost is basically Q by 2, which is equal to price. So price is Q by 2. Therefore, P was equal to 12 minus Q. P is basically Q by 2 plus Q is equal to 12. So 3 by 2 Q is equal to 12. Q is equal to 8. P is equal to 4. Price discrimination. This is the perfect competition case. If I were to draw my diagram here, what is happening is Q is equal to 8. P is equal to 4. P, Q, 8, 4. Perfect price discrimination case. This is what it is. What will be the surplus? We can find out the surplus. Yeah, so Q is equal to 8. Therefore, Q1 is equal to Q2 is equal to 4. Okay, right? There's no consumer surplus. So basically, the profit is integration. Profit, okay, let's find out firstly the total revenue. Total revenue is nothing but integration 0 to 8, 12 minus Q dQ. Right? This is what is the entire total revenue. So that's 12Q minus Q square by 2, 0 to 8. 8 into 12 is 96, 96 minus 32, basically 64. Total revenue. Profit is 64 minus the cost. Cost is basically Q square by 4. So 8 square by 2. 32, 64. Q square by 4, 16. 64 minus 16, 48. प्रॉफिट. ठीक है, क्लियर है. टोटल रेवेन्यू कैसे निकला समझ में आ गया. टोटल कॉस्ट इज Q square by 4. ये रहा टोटल कॉस्ट. क्लियर.